6 weeks and counting as BP keeps looking for ideas to contain the oil leak in the Gulf. President Obama meets with his panel on the Gulf oil spill, and the administration says emissions are on the rise in a new report to the UN.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
Good afternoon. I'm Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for the Energy Report. With the top kill and official failure, BP is turning to another unproven technology to try to contain the biggest oil spill in U.S. history. In the latest temporary fix, remote-controlled submarines are sawing through the leaking pipe and lowering a cap with a rubber seal over the blowout preventer, a procedure known as a lower marine riser package, or LMRP. If that works, officials say it could be 3 days before oil can be siphoned to the surface. The top kill was abandoned over the weekend after the pressure from the oil was too much for the mud and the rubber pieces being pushed down into it. BP is also drilling 2 relief wells that could drop the oil pressure, but those are months from completion. An independent investigation of the Deepwater Horizon disaster is now underway. President Obama met today with the co-chairman of the panel he created about 2 weeks ago, Florida Senator Bob Graham, and William Riley, EPA administrator under the first President Bush. Speaking afterward in the Rose Garden, Obama said if the investigation finds that laws are insufficient, they'll be changed. If government oversight wasn't tough enough, that will change. And if laws were broken, the president says those responsible will be brought to justice. He says the panel will have wide authority in the investigation.
And I've authorized the Commission to hold public hearings and to request information from government, from non-for-profit organizations, and from experts in the oil and gas industry, both at home and abroad, as well as from relevant companies, including BP, Transocean, Halliburton, and others. I just said in our meeting, in doing this work, they have my full support to follow the facts wherever they may lead, without fear or favor. And I'm directing them to report back in 6 months with options for how we can prevent and mitigate the impact of any future spills that result from offshore drilling.
5 other members of the commission are still to be named. The president says they will include leaders in science and engineering, and they'll work alongside other ongoing reviews, including an independent probe by the National Academy of Engineers. Meanwhile, the Coast Guard is replacing the admiral who's been the federal on-scene coordinator since the rig explosion. Rear Admiral Mary Landry will return to duties as commandant of the 8th Coast Guard District in New Orleans to focus on hurricane season preparations. She's being replaced by Rear Admiral James Watson. Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Robert Papp says in a statement that Landry's relief had been planned since the start of the response. Well, BP's travails in the Gulf are making for a slippery stock price. BP lost millions more in market value today, the first trading day since the top kill procedure failed to stop the leak over the weekend. At one point today, the company's share price lost as much as 15%. It fell to its lowest level in more than a year. Shares have now lost more than a third of their value since the April 20th explosion in the Gulf, wiping out some $63 billion of BP's value. BP said it had spent $990 million so far on fighting and cleaning up the spill, with multiple lawsuits for damages yet to be tallied. U.S. greenhouse gases will grow by 4% through the year 2020. That includes a 1.5% rise in carbon dioxide emissions. This figure was disclosed in the White House's first major climate report to the UN. This nearly 200-page report summarizes U.S. action to address climate change. It blames a large portion of emissions growth on expectations that hydrofluorocarbons will more than double by 2020. The last time the U.S. submitted a climate report to the UN was in 2006. West Virginia's Office of Miners Health, Safety and Training says inspectors issued more than 100 citations for violations found during an inspection blitz. Governor Joe Manchin ordered these inspections after the disaster at Massey Energy's Upper Big Branch mine on April the 5th. Agency spokeswoman Leslie Fitzwater says inspectors targeted 51 problem mines. The rest of West Virginia's approximately 200 underground coal mines were examined within a week. Fitzwater says state inspectors issued 128 citations and ordered 2 mines closed until the problems are fixed. Turkmenistan started work on a $2 billion gas pipeline to try to boost its export capacity. Building it on its own, Turkmenistan will essentially control the ultimate destination of this natural gas. Russia's been trying to convince Turkmenistan to cooperate on a proposed pipeline that would stretch along the Caspian Sea and into Russia. But the U.S. and Europe want them to ship the gas beneath the Caspian Sea and into the planned Nabucco system. The 620-mile pipeline, called East-West, will have an annual capacity of 30 billion cubic meters after its expected completion in 2015. Rome unveiled a master plan on Monday to transform itself into a green, low-carbon, post-petroleum capital. The plan calls for Rome to invest about $615 million in the next 20 years in new industries and businesses. The city's mayor presented the proposal alongside U.S. economist Jeremy Rifkin, who's been advising the EU on an economic sustainability plan. The plan calls for three main areas of transformation: turning the congested historic center into a greener, pedestrian-friendly space, developing the commercial ring around the capital, and improving the agricultural areas outside the city to reduce its carbon footprint. The greening is part of the city's plan to win the bid for the 2020 Olympics. Let's take a look now at some energy goings-on around the Beltway tomorrow. 10 a.m., Randall Luthi, president of the National Ocean Industries Association, talks about the implications of the Gulf oil spill for the offshore oil and gas industry. At noon, the 2010 winner of the Buckminster Fuller Award will be announced at a ceremony at the National Press Club. That's the competition that recognizes initiatives and key issues like water scarcity, food supply, and energy consumption. That is the Energy Report. We'll see you tomorrow with your latest energy news. For any suggestions or comments about our programming on Clean Skies News, you can email us at contact@cleanskies.com, and you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook. From all of us here in the Energy News Center, have a good day.